This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner.
One of the realities of a gunfight is having to be able to get yourself back in the gunfight if you're injured. We talked about being injured. Sitting here pulling up to an intersection, just left the building, decided to hand sanitize before I get out into traffic. So, leaving a parking lot now. What I wanted to talk about, though, is have you ever timed yourself? And I haven't done this in a long time. I'm remiss for keeping this up. But have you... Somebody just kindly let me out. So, have you timed yourself getting to your medical and putting it on? Now, this makes the assumption that you have on-body medical. It took me several years to get the right recipe to carry it. I carry on both ankles. I carry a backup weapon on my left ankle. I carry an identical pouch, actually, on my right ankle. They're both designed for ankle medical. And it's what I found. I had to drop $45 a piece over time. But what I will guarantee you is I would much rather have this and not need it than need it and not have it. And I carry shears and that sort of thing. You may have to pack a wound, you may have to have a pair of scissors to cut away the clothing from a pant leg or whatever to get to the wound, to wound pack. Do you know how to wound pack? Could you practice wound packing on yourself, knowing that you're gonna have to get yourself back in the fight and you've got to plug the leak fast enough that you don't bleed to death? If that's what you're doing at that moment. So have you practiced that? Because if you have recently, that's valuable. And I have not as recently as I need to. Getting to it one-handed, because what if your other hand is holding pressure on a wound? What if your own wound? What if your other hand is holding pressure on someone else's wound? Be prepared to get your blood and someone else's blood on you. If there is a shooting or a stabbing, there will be blood. It's a reality. So are you prepared for that? I try to keep a pair of nitrile gloves in my, I could come up with a word, in my ankle medical at all times. I end up using them an alarming amount of the time on ride-alongs where I need to help an officer with something and I put gloves on. Are you in that moment? Do you have the stuff that you need in that moment right then and there to affect your own rescue, to plug the hole? Have you timed yourself doing it? Now, you see this from time to time. I remember when I first got into shooting and stuff, I thought this was silly. But practicing shooting impaired, where you're practicing offhand, you're practicing support hand, meaning this hand is my support hand. Weak hand, support hand, offhand, whatever you want to call it. That hand is the hand that is going to be the one that I would have to use if something happens to this hand. So I'm sitting at a stoplight now, and now that I'm stopped, I'm going to show you this. If I drive out my hands to shoot, one of the really interesting things that happens in gun battles is this happens in war, this happens in defensive shootings, this happens in law enforcement related shootings, is injuries to hands, injuries to forearms and shoulders, biceps, triceps. Sometimes things get blown away. Fingers. I know of a gentleman in my area, police officer, that was engaged in a gun battle with a guy. The guy jumped out of the vehicle and started shooting at him and he ended up shooting the bad guy's finger off. This stuff happens. This is the reality. This is the reality of a gunfight. And you may lose a digit. What happens if you lose your index finger? These things bleed. Do you have, I mean, I know this is grisly, but this is meat and potatoes reality of a gunfight. And the bad guy was pointing a weapon at him, and instinctively we aim at the threat. So you may get shot in your strong hand, and I have not practiced with my support hand in too long. When I got sick, it cost me a month, and then it cost me another month to get everything caught up. And then, after all that was said and done, then I ended up in a situation where I needed to, now I need to get caught up with some of my practice up to and including, I need to get caught up on some of my offhand shooting and practicing with medical, practicing dropping things, all of this kind of stuff to get me ready for the gunfight I hope to never begin.
If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.